Hi there, friends. All right, we're going to talk a little bit today about the persona charts again. We're going to look at the Mercury persona chart this time. So if you're wanting to understand and dive a little bit more deeply into a person's Mercury in their birth chart, especially if there's a Mercury that's unaspected, or let's say it's a Mercury in Gemini. I was joking about this in the video about the moon. Let's say you have Mercury in Gemini in the third house and it's unaspected, and there's just no other sort of information that you're able to glean from this Mercury placement. This is a great way to go a little bit deeper. So these persona charts are when we take the sun, because the sun is the day of the year. You know, the year is almost 360 degrees, right? Or 360 days rather, like a circle. And so the sun represents a point. You know, each day is a point around the circle. The sun's ecliptic. And in our birth chart, of course, your sun represents, it's the day that you came into existence. So it represents you and your life, and you as a personality, as an individual. So in the persona charts, it's like we're looking at just Mercury in your chart, or whoever's chart you're looking at. We're looking at this person's Mercury as an individual. So we kind of personify it a little bit. It's like we're reading the birth chart for this person's Mercury. So you can pull these up on astro.com. You just go to astro.com, go to their extended chart selection, and you're going to scroll down. They have a little drop-down menu where you select the chart you want, and just scroll to the bottom and select persona chart. It will pull up the charts that you have in the database. If you don't have any, you got to put your birth info in, and then select Mercury, okay, and refresh the page. So we're going to look at, I have quite a few today, and I kind of couldn't stop choosing different famous people from history and current contemporary celebrities, or more. Actually, I don't have a ton of celebrities. The focus is a bit more on scientists or thinkers or authors or politicians, that sort of thing. Those people who are known for their Mercury in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's kind of fun to see. I've got some artists in here, talk show hosts, that kind of thing. So I'm going to divide it probably in half. We'll see when I get to 20 minutes. Okay, so first of all, we're going to keep this very simple. If you're doing this with your birth chart, you can look at the entire persona chart, this Mercury persona chart. You start with the sun, look at the house placement it's in, okay? So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to focus on the sun and the ruler, maybe the third house, maybe the Mercury in that chart, just to get a little feel. But really the sun placement and how it's being treated by the rest of the chart will give you the main information if you want to keep it simple, okay? So let's start here first with good old Donald Trump. And all of the people that I'm using, these are all available if you want to follow along on astro.com through their Astro databank. So you can just go pull them up and add them to your personal database, okay? Okay, so Donald Trump, for him, of course, he's very much known for his voice. He has this sun, his Mercury's in Cancer in his birth chart. And I'm pretty sure it's in the 11th house, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I'm like 100% positive, actually, it's in the 11th. His sun, then, is in Cancer at 8 degrees. In this persona chart's in the 2nd house. So I noticed something as I was going through. There's quite a few individuals with sun in the first quadrant. And those who were sort of known for being maybe inventors or mavericks, or those who were willing to, all the way through, actually through to I would say through the Cancer, through the 4th house, 1st through 4th. It's sort of those initial first 4 archetypes of the zodiac. And those are people who have a vision of their own, and they're not easily swayed necessarily by other people's opinions. Their career path or their use of their Mercury in their mind has been much more focused on their personal goals, okay? So with Donald Trump, sun in the 2nd, 2nd house is Taurus, and I saw 2nd house quite a few times. Mine's in the 2nd as well. I think this placement is one who you're going to see in people's charts, people who have an opinion about something that they like to be in control of, and they like to be the one who sort of, whether it's they like to create the messaging or the branding, or if they're a scientist, perhaps they have a specific field that they're studying that's very niche to them. So it's also, there's a stubbornness, there's a desire to keep things in a state of stasis, and also to sort of keep your world, your mental world, under control. So I know me personally, when I have an opinion about something, other people can't necessarily I don't really care what other people think per se. And if I'm interested in something as well, I tend to be interested in it for a long time. So with Donald Trump, so Sun in the second in Cancer, we have that very personal, sensitive, can be very intuitive and ambitious, Cancer, but it's ruled by a moon in Leo in his third house. So he has someone who's emotionally, his ego and his pride, gets wounded, can get wounded, if he can take things personally. So this is basically how this is feeling to me. And he's got a lot of planets in the third, and he's a Gemini rising in this chart, which isn't surprising. Uranus conjunct the ascendant. He's always sort of flipping and flopping, and you never really know for sure what it is, like politically, where he's going to stand. He has his promises he's made to his backers. So he's like sticking with his promises. I'm really trying to push those through. But it comes down to like the wall or what have you, not to be political, but I think a lot of Americans aren't interested in having the wall built. Like there's other ways we can spend our money in ways that are, like have education or etc. But because of the Cancer Leo sort of activity here in the second and third houses, it's very much, he's a little bit myopic. Right? He sees what he wants to see. He's got a goal in mind and he wants to make it happen. He also has Pluto in the third. I am guilty of this as well. But I also noticed that Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein have Pluto in the third. So I think it's a placement for people who become obsessed with subject matter. And I would absolutely fall in that category. I'm for sure 100% with astrology, for example. It is my passion. I love astrology. It's the study of time and of humanity and of existence. So as humans have coursed through civilization, why would you not be interested in it? So when I look at Donald Trump, his just feels like he is indeed, it's exactly kind of what you would expect, right? Uranus rising, he's a maverick. He's going to say what he wants to say. He shoots from the hip. He's spontaneous. He's a rebel. Yeah, it's okay. So, and it's Uranus and Gemini being ruled by his Mercury in Leo, conjunct moon. Emotionally reactive communicator. Also, though, someone who knows how to put on the charm when he needs to. I looked at his other persona charts, like his Venus chart. He has some things that show he knows how to manipulate people. Like strong, he has a strong Western side of his chart. But anyhow, okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's look at Bernie Sanders, just for a little comparison. So with Bernie, the sun's in the fourth. It's in Libra, early, it's like 2 of Libra, in the fourth house, that's the Cancer house. So this is someone who communicates from a place of, there's a desire for justice, for fairness, for peace, diplomacy, but it's in the fourth house, which is, it's like your guts, it's the core of you. And when he speaks from his insides. Like whereas Trump, with the second and the third, kind of with the ruler being in the third, and in Leo, and there's a mutual reception between his sun placement. Wait, am I saying that correct? Let me go back and make sure. So his sun and his moon are mutually receptive. So it's like he is sort of like a little kid sometimes. He gets his feelings hurt and then he acts out and bullies other people, says things about other people that are rude. He can be a really big bully. And it's kind of all that Leo together, ruled by Sun and Cancer in the second. Like he feels justified in trying to kind of control, I suppose, the conversation or the messaging. So anyhow, Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, Sun in the fourth, it's in Libra. It's going to be someone who is, of course, let's do something here. Let's fix this. Let's take action, because it is cardinal, ruled by a Venus and Scorpio in the fifth. So a person who that's also squaring Chiron in his first house and also Pluto. So when he is passionate about something, if he believes in something and it aligns with his values, he's going to push, and not anyone who has Scorpio in the fifth. They tend to be, when they want to complete a task, they complete the task. My mom has, I think, Mars and Scorpio in the fifth. And she came in one time, she's like, can I help you with something on the house? I was like, can you help me with my basement? And I've told people this before, but she organized my whole basement, and it in a day. That's Mars in Scorpio in the fifth. But also, you cannot get my mom, you can't force her to do anything. She's very independent. And this is a Venus in Scorpio. So he knows how to use his connections with people, his social contacts, connections with power as well, to promote and to advance his projects. So as far as with the sun, his Mercury persona sun here in Libra, it is in the sign of Libra, which is about, as I said, fairness and diplomacy. But it's also in the fourth house, and so there probably are times where he responds to situations in a way that's overly emotional or reactive. That's a possibility. He's got the moon is in Sagittarius in the fifth, right on the cusp of fifth and sixth. So that to me also feels a bit like he has big dreams and he sees the big picture. Obviously, politics is one of Sagittarius's areas of exploit, but at any rate, and he's got Pluto in the first house, where it just feels like this to me, with Cancer rising, Pluto in the first, the sun in the fourth, is a person who's driven by his own personal experiences, probably from his childhood, with what was fair and what wasn't fair, and wealth disparities being obviously one of those. I don't know his whole life story, but I'm sure there's something in there, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Next person I have, I've got John Lennon in here. I want to think of a few artists. So with John Lennon, we've got a second house sun. And again, we have with the second house, Taurus. Keywords for Taurus are things like sustain or maintain, hold on to endure, to keep. Taurus and second house are all about preventing change, preventing evolution. They want to keep things static. I'm not saying all Taurus suns are like that. It's just the archetype of Taurus. That's what it's about. You have to have sustenance to survive in life. You have to have things like food, clothing, shelter. That's all sort of second house in a sense. It's your, sort of your physical environment and what you have around you to help you survive life. And so his sun is here with Ceres. Sun is in Scorpio. So this is a person whose communication style was probably fairly private. Scorpio, it's funny because I know he and Yoko did all the photos and stuff that were very open. Obviously they're like naked on their bed, and those are photos on Rolling Stone or whatever. But when it came to more personal matters, usually people who have Mercury and Scorpio, and I honestly haven't looked at his chart, I just pulled up this chart, but they usually are really very careful. They're good at asking questions. They're very careful about what they expose. And he has the ruler, Pluto. It's up in the 11th house, which of course ties into what I just said a second ago, the things like the bed in or the whatever, what do you call it, like a love-in, desire with Pluto in the 11th to affect change in the collective, as part of the collective. And also, of course, he died from being famous, someone who was crazy, unfortunately, sadly took his life. But if you notice as well, he's got this T-square here. So Sun and Mercury, representing again his Mercury. Sun in Scorpio, representing his Mercury, conjunct Ceres. So there's another layer of Taurus-y energy, Taurus-y expression. Remember, your planets are verbs. So he holds on to his identity. He held on to, his name even, because I know when he broke off from the Beatles, there's this quality here of recognizing that there's power in having some control over your life and your path. And probably someone, as well, as I said earlier, who was totally comfortable in that space of innovating, in that space of coming up with his own new ideas. And he's got this lovely Venus, Neptune, conjunct the ascendant here. So that's art, obviously, and music and poetry. It's in Virgo. It also has to do with, I always think of Virgo as having, there's a desire there to heal the self. And a lot of times we will learn something that's a skill that we can use to help other people, because it might be something that we personally, like astrologers. A lot of astrologers, you'll see Virgo in their charts, or strong sixth houses, strong chirons. It's because they have that themselves. They were interested initially because of their own wounding. So it's kind of like there's this desire in his chart to use his words in a way that brought beauty, peace. It's like instant karma, or give love a chance, or wait, give peace a chance, not give love. Sorry. So he's like an idealist, Venus at 29 degrees of Virgo. Definitely someone who, Mars in the first house in Libra, so he may have been someone who is pretty opinionated. I don't know much about him either, so with the Scorpio Mercury, I can only imagine. He liked to be, I would imagine, in control of things. Yeah, and he's got a moon and Mercury are in Scorpio as well. Mercury retrograde in the 3rd house. So in the Mercury persona chart. So definitely somebody who I think if you were to look at his life, there are probably some stories about him getting in fights with the guys in the band, which is normal. That happens in all bands, but him really being staunchly, like, you know, holding his position, especially anything that has to do with money, or when they had their Hamburg years. Wasn't it Hamburg? I think I'm saying the wrong thing. Anyway, you know, where they spent that whole year playing the same set every night. It's not Hamburg. What is it? Is it Hamburg? Oh well. That would have required and definitely been helped by his, all that 2nd house Scorpio stuff. Now Marilyn Monroe, on the other hand, we move over to the other side of the chart. So if you're watching this, I hope you have the charts pulled up. It's so much better if you can see what I'm talking about. I tried to record this the other day, do a screen recording. I didn't record my voice. I need to figure it out. So now Marilyn Monroe, her sun's in the 6th. So this is our Virgo house. This is the house that has to do with repair. You know, Virgo is this archetype that recognizes we are in a 3-dimensional world. We are in mortal bodies, and everything that exists in this world will eventually decay and die, and then be regenerated as something else. That's 6th house stuff. So you can look at it from the perspective of, you know, oh, this new pair of shoes I just got, the heel broke and I'm so bummed, and wah. Or you can like go get the heel fixed and get it hammered back on, right? That 2nd act would be a positive, high use of Virgo. And the first, just kind of that being in the place of recognizing everything about life that's broken, that's the negative shadow side. Now, she has her sun, her identity, her sense of self, it's in Gemini, right? And Mercury in Gemini. This is someone, too, if you know Norma Jean, Marilyn Monroe, she had these 2 different names, 2 different personas. And in the 6th house, it's like, kind of feels to me like she didn't necessarily have, this is not a person with a voice that's like a bold, this is my opinion, this is who I am. There's a tenderness, or there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a weakness, but a deferment, almost like she would defer to others, like what they thought she should look like or be, or, you know, etc. And her sun in Gemini is ruled by her Mercury in Gemini, right there in the 7th house. So that's absolutely her shape-shifting because of another person's feedback or opinion, or, you know, name even. Her name, like, this is crazy. Mercury, which represents your name, it's in this persona chart in the 7th house in Gemini. It's like somebody else named her, and she had 2 names. So that's pretty cool. This Mercury as well, it's opposite her Sagittarius rising, and there's Ceres right there in her 1st house on her ascendant. So that to me feels very stuck. It feels like she's wanting to feel free in her life, and wanting to feel like she feels like she's optimistic and buoyant, but then just gets slammed. So anyway, remember your Mercury's like your story. So what's the story, my personal story about me and my life, and also how do I obviously use my mind, how do I communicate with people, how do I perceive my world mentally. So for me, I feel like a lot of her energy would go towards either pleasing other people, being what it was they wanted her to be. There's this mutability with Gemini, but then also not feeling like she knew who she was. Almost like she's like several people in one body, you know. And North Node for her is in the 7th house as well. And of course, this is our Venusian house, and she's got Venus and Pluto here in Cancer, ruled by Moon and Taurus in the 5th. This is a sex symbol. Venus-Pluto conjunction. Mars is on the other side in the 8th house, also in Cancer. This is America. It's so perfect because think of her body. She's very curvy, feminine, you know, large breasts, large hips, small waist. That's the mother. That's the matriarchal archetype, you know, the mother archetype versus, you know, a lot of models today that are very skinny. They're like, it's because feminism, the wave of feminism that came, made skinnier women more attractive, weaker women more attractive than women who were like mother-like. But in the 50s, of course, like she was the sex symbol, because that's what, after the war, men came home to a Cancer country, mother, right? And so that was what was celebrated. That was American, like apple pie. So she's set up quite nicely. Venus conjunct Pluto in Cancer. Pluto is 14 degrees of Cancer, United States 13 degrees of Cancer. So her Pluto, her sexy, her magnetic appeal, her charisma, it's like, boom, there it is. So yeah, there's Marilyn. Let's look at, let me see, I'm going to do just one more on this one. I think I'll do one more artist, and then I'm going to pause and do like a part 2. So let's do Mozart. So Mozart has his sun in the 8th house, and it's also, his is really pretty cool. Considering he's a genius, right? He was able to play the piano and write symphonies when he was a child, I believe, or I don't know the exact terms to use for the types of music he was able to write, if he was able to write entire symphonies. I don't know if that's true, but I know that he was a prodigy. He has Sun conjunct Mercury in Aquarius in the 8th house. So Aquarius is the sign that has to do with outliers. It has to do with those who are genius and those who are crazy, or those who are way up in the clouds, not anywhere near the earth. He's got an opposition to Neptune in his 2nd house too, and it's exact. Neptune 9 of Leo, Mercury 9 of Aquarius. So that to me definitely ties into music, his ability to sort of, like the Mercury Neptune thing. Anybody who has Mercury Neptune in their birth chart, or sort of like in their Mercury chart, I imagine they're going to receive information through, like, in their own head, hearing it, or if they are a visual artist, it's like they will envision the whole work, or maybe they even just start the process and they get into flow really easily, and then it just kind of comes through them. It feels like you can almost channel, And Sun being conjunct Mercury also have a little quality of being someone who has a childlike nature, or there's an element of their inner child. They could have been, as a young age, they sort of needed to claim their name and take it back. Because the 8th house to me definitely feels like this is an individual who, when he needed to write his music, or when he needed to do something that engaged his brain in that process of composing, it to me feels like it came hit or miss for him. It wasn't like, he wasn't the type of artist that would sit down every day and like follow a schedule. He's gonna have to do it his own way. It's like, oh, the muse's speaking, I'm in a, I don't know, I'm in a carriage in the middle of, where do you live, Vienna? I need to get home, or going weeks or like long periods of time where he wouldn't get things done, because Aquarius is, by nature, it is an unpredictable archetype. It's meant to do something that's new, and we're not always ready to receive it. So I think a lot of times those people who are genius at what they do, they have just enough weirdness to their personality, which he definitely had, just enough weirdness socially that they don't care. They don't have the self-consciousness that a lot of people have when it comes to allowing the flow to kind of come to them. He's also got Mars rising. Mars is in Cancer, 0 of Cancer. So I'm curious if he was sort of, I don't know, if he'd have like hissy fits, if he would kind of get angry and storm off, or just be sort of emotionally a little bit reactive. Moon in Sagittarius as well. It's intercepted, which to me would say, in a Mercury chart, that's someone whose emotions and his vision and his feeling about this is the song, or these are the notes, or this is the key, or whatever, very much feels to me like he would, kind of be listening to his inner voice more than anything else. Jupiter, the ruler, down in the 5th too. So anyway, okay, that's Mozart. I'm going to stop here, and then we will pick up with the rest.